All right, team, it's been over a year. How about we finally get the 1999 KX250 Splitfire Kawasaki all assembled. So welcome back, guys, to the 1999 Kawasaki KX250 Splitfire build project. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. You guys have been waiting a while. I've been waiting a while. I've just been really wanting to see a motorcycle in the garage again. So I'm gonna take you guys along the journey to finally get this motorcycle that you see in front of me up and built. Fresh Dunlop tires are going to be going on those wheels, the suspension, pipe, UFO plastics. I've got all of the nickel plated spec bolts ready to go here. I was actually able to find an NOS UFO flow green front fender that's era specific and is the exact color that they use. The brake components need to be put together with all new Pro X parts, and then all the zinc plated bolts are ready to go for this thing to be put back together. Some other work that needs to be done: I've got a couple shorty Stinger silencers. The air box needs to be cleaned up with a fresh air filter. Hoses need to be cleaned up, and then I also need to put the seat cover on the seat as well. So that is an era specific Pro Circuit seat that was said actually to be on Ricky Carmichael's practice bike. Normally I'd start with getting the engine in the frame first, but I'm going to detour a little bit and throw the front forks on because I just can't wait to see those on. And I've also got these super rare Pro Circuit triple clamps to fit the 46mm forks. We've got the Pro X bearing kit here. Now these triple clamps do have a bearing on there that actually seem really good, so I'm not going to throw the new bearing on here if I don't have to, but I'll just throw the races into the frame and get these triple clamps bolted up. Before we go ahead and bolt anything up to the frame, we actually need to prep it for the build. And I'm actually talking about all the contact points here for where the bolts go. Reason being, you want metal to metal contact on these surfaces. Now, I'm 100% guilty of not doing this in the past. So basically, when you torque these bolts, like the engine bolts, for example, you're torquing through layers of powder coat, which is not ideal. To do that, I've got the Dremel here. I've got a 400 grit sandpaper wheel, and I'll simply just Dremel off the powder coat in all these spots here, and then Dremel especially where the ignition coil is here because it needs the metal to ground to. You want to sand out the insides too of where the engine bolts go through, because I had instances prior where these major pivot bolts didn't go through anymore because the powder coat was just a little bit too thick. So just simple things to prep your frame for the build. Never be shy with the Maxima grease while greasing up these steering stem bearings. Make sure you've greased up the races as well. Then get the triple clamp in. So before we go any further, I've got this cool new tool. Say that 5 times fast. It's from Velocity Components. It's a steering stem spanner nut adjuster. Normally most guys just use a punch and a hammer to get that thing tightened down, which I've done for many years. So there's actually a process to it. You're supposed to torque the spanner nut down to 29 foot-pounds first to seat the steering stem bearings. Then you're supposed to back it out, turn the bar side to side from lock to lock, and then you're supposed to torque it back down to 35 inch-pounds. So with this tool, it'll come in handy to make sure we've done the process right. So finally stoked to do this process after so many years the proper way. I actually needed to file the frame down a little bit here because the Pro Circuit triple clamps, the steering stop wasn't clearing the side of the frame here. No big deal, but we got it to fit. Then the moment I've been waiting for the most, to be honest, is getting these Pro Circuit Precision Works coated forks into the Pro Circuit triple clamps. So based on the specs from Pro Circuit, we've got a fork height of 5mm, so we'll just set that real quick. Then with the axle through the front forks to even out the front forks, went ahead and torqued these up to 14.5 foot-pounds. Then the steering stem nut can be torqued down to 58 foot-pounds. Now it's time to get this beautiful engine into the frame. What we're gonna do is just take it from the left side into the right side. So these engine mounting bolts always go from left to right here. Make sure you get that orientation correctly. Just kind of jiggle the engine and get them through. These were zinc plated by Nick's Vapor Honing Services, so thanks to Nick for hooking that up. I do love this bike stand from Tusk. I gotta say, it just makes everything 10 times easier. You don't have to worry about the bike falling off because it's mounted down. And these are bolts that I'm not going to torque down right now just because there's going to be a lot of other components going onto the frame, and the engine will find its happy place, and then that's when we'll go ahead and torque these down. And then the engine hangers here are also installed left to right. I'm not going to torque these down yet either because we still need to get the swing arm bolt through the rear of the engine. Might as well get the beautiful swing arm in. This thing probably took me about 4 hours or so. You guys know the story behind it, the sandblasting issue, and then use the prime pads with the flap wheels and just made sure it came out beautiful. So let's get it on. Swing arm bolt goes from right to left. And the point of the zinc plating is, after you clean up these bolts with the prime pads, you just don't want these things to rust, so the zinc plating will prevent the rust. Let's throw the linkage on. I've got NOS Pro Circuit pull rods, so really excited about those. Fresh Pro X bearings in the linkage, as well as a swing arm down there, and then Maxima grease to top it off, and some more zinc plating. And then some more zinc plating by Nick's Vapor Honing Service. As always, make sure you grease up all these linkage bolts before you put them in. I haven't been able to figure out how to get a torque wrench into this linkage nut here. There's just not enough space between the nut and the frame. So I'm gonna throw the 17-inch box wrench on there and just tighten it down by feel. And actually, good thing I haven't tightened these nuts down yet, because I actually can't get the swing arm in with the 2 linkage arms in the way. Now we can go ahead and get this shock on, and then this bolt actually screws in, and then you throw the nut on the end, and then the one for the bottom of the shock actually goes right to left. And then that takes a torque of 25 foot-pounds. Then you can finally go ahead and connect up the linkage arms. Take a look at how things are coming along. Pretty happy with what the progress has been. Man, really love the colors on that rear shock. Let's go ahead and throw that carburetor on while we're at it. Got fresh new chain adjusters thanks to Spec Bolt. How about we throw a piece of carbon fiber on the bike? DSP replica carbon chain guide here with the UFO plastic. Let's see how this thing looks. More Spec Bolt nickel plated hardware. Fits like a glove. Okay, so continuing on, we're going to throw some radiators on here. Now these were freshly vapor blasted by Tyler at Motoresurgence. And then I also got radiator braces welded on there. These are actually from Prime MX, these corner radiator braces. Excited how clean those came out. So hoses are ready to go as well. Now, because of the Boyson water cooler, I do need to take 7/8 of an inch off of this radiator hose, which I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife to do. Next up, let's throw some brakes on. So the calipers and both the master cylinders were vapor blasted again by Tyler at Motoresurgence. While I was at Pro Circuit, I managed to get 4 Pro Circuit banjo bolts, which is pretty sweet, as well as the rear brake clevis there. And then here we've got a billet rear brake reservoir here from Billet Dreams. It's not a 100% replica, but it looks pretty damn close, and it will get the job done for this build. So I'll leave Billet Dreams info in my description below. And then what I also did was upgrade to a CRF master front master cylinder here. So the reason being is these hold a little bit more fluid in there. It'll give me a little bit more stopping power up front. So if you guys want a cheap fix to your 99 KX250 front brake stopping woes, then go with the CRF front master cylinder. And then for the brake lines, we've got some Galliper steel braided ones, so let's get them on the bike. Okay, so I think it's time to get some new rubber onto these wheels. So we got the XLs laced to Bulldog spokes and NB hubs here. And we've got the brand new MX33 Dunlops on here. So they've got a little bit different design up front, and the lugs are a little bit taller in the rear. But let's get these tires onto these rims. I got a little treat for these Dunlops. How about some fresh tire stickers? Got to match it up with the XL Takasago logo as well. And let's get the brake rotors and Renthal sprocket on. So these rotors are actually some original Talon rotors. These came with Talon hubs that I was going to use on this bike. They definitely look factory, and I'm happy to have them on the bike. Since we're working on the wheels, we might as well check out the chain wheels. Now I'm going to be running full Renthal sprockets here. I went with the OEM gearing 48-13. I was running a 49, but with the engine mods that I did, I'm curious to see how the 48 runs. If I don't like it and want a little bit more oomph on the bottom, I'll bump up to the 49. And then we're going to be running the gold 520 RK chain here. It's pretty much the best chain that RK makes for motocross and supercross. You guys know I've been running the primary drive chain and sprockets, which look pretty much exactly like the Renthal sprockets from Rocky Mountain ATV-MC. They're made of pretty much the same material too, but for this build, since I'm going so specific, I do have to run the Renthals. I'm a big Renthal guy anyway, so it's cool to actually run the Renthals. But if you guys want an affordable, quality alternative, I've run the primary drive sprockets now on about 10 bikes without any issue at all. I definitely highly recommend those. Now again, the theme is always making sure the logos match up with each other, like the Dunlop sticker, the XL logo on the rim, as well as the Renthal sticker there on the sprocket. And then I've also got the NV logo matched all in line. So when the tire is straight up and down, everything looks clean and smooth. So these are just the little details that you guys can do to your bikes to just give them that factory touch. Now normally you'd want to leave some blue Loctite on these sprocket bolts, but the bolts from Spec Bolt here actually have a little bit of Loctite on them, so really don't need to put any more Loctite than what's on these. Let's get the front wheel on, but I got some brand new OEM fork sliders. The OEM ones I had were just too dingy looking. Okay, so there is a correct procedure on getting your front wheel installed. What you're going to do is once you get the axle in, you're going to tighten down the axle nut itself, and then we'll get these left side axle bolts torqued down to 14.5 foot-pounds. We'll take the bike off the stand, and you can either jump on it or keep the bike on the stand, spin the front wheel and hit the brake, and then by doing that, this right fork leg will find its happy place, and then you can go ahead and torque the right side axle bolts. Now I do have Pro Circuit axle blocks that are getting last minute anodized, the PC brown color, along with the clutch perch, but for the sake of the video and to keep getting this bike together, I'm just going to throw the rear wheel on with the OEM axle blocks. Okay, before we go ahead and throw the front counter sprocket on, we do just need to put the O-rings on the counter shaft itself. So I'm just going to grease up these two O-rings, put them on the counter shaft, and followed by the collar. I also greased up the back of this collar here too. Okay, slide that all the way on until it seats. Then we've got the brand new Renthal counter shaft sprocket, followed by the circlip. Okay, time for the chain. Let's throw it on here and see where we land and see how many links we need to take out. Checking it out, that seems like a pretty decent amount. The Motion Pro chain brake tool, gotta be one of the best tools that you can buy, because with an impact gun like I just did, gotta be the easiest way to break a chain. And we just got the master link here. Gonna put the Made in Japan sign out. How about that? All right, so you guys might have noticed that I've actually put the airbox and rear sub panel onto the bike on this left side of the bike. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I was able to find some super rare Berg airbox streamliners that you see here. And these things are actually NOS, so I have the original riveting still in the packaging. So this is the left side of the bike, and the reason being, let me actually take it over for you guys. Guys were catching themselves on the side panel, and their boots were kind of hanging up. It streamlines the boot to rear side panel feel, so you're not catching your boot and pulling the rear sub panel off, which you can imagine is probably pretty dangerous. I really only have pictures, don't have any instructions on how to do this, so I'm just making sure that the curve of the streamliner lines up with the curve in the frame. You can see the jut out here where it lines with the subframe, so I think like somewhere in that region is the way to go. I am worried about the side panel being a little bit difficult to get on after I put these on, but hopefully it won't be too bad. All right, there we go. I did fudge up the first time, and I actually didn't put washers on the inside of the airbox where those rivets are. I should have trusted my gut because I felt like we should do that on the first go around, but after talking with Matty Westbury down in Australia, he confirmed that if you do not put the washers on the inside of the airbox, on the rivets there, that they will pull out of the plastic just because it's so pliable. So had to re-drill all those rivets out, find the correct washers, get them riveted back in. Up next, we might as well go and throw the PK99 Pro Circuit Works pipe on. Now, Pro Circuit actually did a run of these a couple months ago. If you guys don't know by now, you can call and get on Pro Circuit's demand list for pretty much any product that they still offer that might be out of stock. So I don't know, I was on the waiting list for probably about 6 months before I actually got this one. Time to throw it on. Go ahead and grease up some fresh, brand new O-rings for it. I've also got a JSV cone pipe for this bike as well, so I'm curious about trying the JSV cone pipe back to back with this Pro Circuit Works pipe. So I've done the JSV cone pipe versus the OEM pipe, and definitely major improvement. So I'm curious to see how the Pro Circuit works against, I guess, the OEM pipe as well as the JSV. Now is a good time to throw that freshly repacked Pro Circuit Shorty R304 Stinger tip silencer on here. And I'm actually gonna throw a little bit of blue Loctite on both of these bolts because I don't want these things falling out. I feel like these nuts have a tendency to back out if you don't use a lock nut. And then we also can't forget the fresh R304 silencer decal. Okay, how about we throw this rear fender on? I realized that I need to take out the silencer bolt as well as the airbox bolts to get this thing on. I'm just continuing to use blue Loctite on all these bolts because I don't want them to loosen up and fall out, especially with a new build. And then the mud flap again from UFO. Okay, then I had to drill the holes in the brand new NOS UFO flow green fender here. So the longer bolts will go up front, so the front number plate can hang on these two longer bolts. In terms of fork guards, we got these pretty sweet carbon fiber fork guards that I was able to score from Kyle from Works Finish. Not necessary, but he said he had them, so I was like, why not? Time to go put the electrical on. Simple tip and trick. I've got pictures and videos that I'm referring to make sure this thing goes back on correctly. We got some more carbon fiber for the case guards. Now we obviously still need graphics, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the side panels on just so it feels like a complete bike. So if you guys watched my very first video, you might remember the issue that I had with my gas tank here, where the shroud bolt actually got stuck inside of the tank here. And then after getting the female part out, basically what you do to get that thing back in there is you just put some glue here, and I've got some E6000 glue to put in that hole. And I'm just gonna push that female piece back into the tank. And actually what I did was I went around with a little bit of glue around the edge of the nut here. Now, does it look like the prettiest thing in the world? No. Could I bought a new tank? Yeah, but the shroud's gonna be covering it anyways. And then before I put the tank on, I did hit it with some Cerakote trim coat just to shine it up, make it look brand new. And then after that, I just simply dropped the tank right in. Forgot that I need to throw the throttle cable on before I put the tank on. That'll just make it a lot easier. You gotta start this thing right, so let's get the Kickstarter on. Took all the casting flash off that are on the back and front of the Kickstarter here, smoothed it out with the Prime MX pads. One of my favorite things to do. Just re-grease the assembly here so it's working nice and smooth, and we'll get it on the motorcycle. Don't forget to put Loctite on this Kickstarter bolt because these will fall out. Get this brake connected to the Pro Circuit clevis. Never hurts to throw a little grease on that pin as you put it through as well. And then you definitely want to make sure you grease up the rear brake pivot point. We got some brand new fresh radiator lubers from Rocky Mountain ATV-MC. Okay, let's fill some coolant here. So I'm a big engine ice guy, firm believer in it. I've also used the Maxima coolant oil as well. But when you can, just really spend the extra money and go with the engine ice. And then we'll tilt it over to let the air bubbles out of the system. And then that should drop the coolant level in the radiators, and then we'll fill it up to the top one more time. And there we go. Coolant level seems to be leveled off. You're definitely gonna wanna check for leaks after you fill it up. Now I had 2 small leaks, one in this top end drain bolt here, and then this connecting hose on the other side. I didn't tighten down the clamp well enough, so it was just dripping ever so slightly. So tighten that hose and we are rock solid. I was gonna throw the radiator shrouds on next, but I think it's time to throw some oil in this thing. So I've got my trusty Maxima MTL 80 weight oil here. Basically your equivalent to 1040. And the Kawasaki here takes 0.85 liters. If you ever forget, it's actually right there on the case. I'm a big fan of these ratio right cups too, so I know exactly how much oil I'm putting in. So I like putting graphics on while the plastics are on the bike. So what I'm gonna do is just throw the shrouds on as well. And with these top tank bolts here, the reason why my other side kind of seized in there is because the bolt bottomed out against the end of the nut. So when that happens, that's why sometimes these bolts can't come out. You got issues like I did where you have to remove the nut from the tank itself. So hopefully we don't have that issue ever again. Okay, bike is off the stand because we've got a couple carbon fiber pieces. If you guys are familiar with the beginning of the build, I was able to grab this water pump guard from Matt Westbury as well as the glide plate here. So I needed to have gussets welded onto the frame here as well as underneath to fit these pieces. So normally the OEM frames don't come with the tabs to mount these glide plates, but it's something that Pro Circuit and the factory teams did back in these days to give it a cleaner look. So my buddy Pete, PB Fabrication, I sent my frame to him to get these gussets and tabs welded on. All in all, it was not a cheap venture, but it's something pretty cool and unique and era specific to these bikes. Okay, so there's the water pump guard. I really love it because it definitely protects the water pump here as well as the bottom of the clutch cover. Then taking a peek underneath, there is the glide plate mounted all up. So pretty happy with getting these era specific guards on this bike. If you can believe it or not, we have yet another piece of carbon fiber. So the front fork lug guard here, these pieces are very, very rare to find as well. Time to get some handlebars on. What's also pretty cool too is I've got this NOS Flow Green Renthal bar pad from my buddy Kyle at Works Finished. He also sent me a second one that I can use for the track. So thanks to Kyle for those. The team didn't use the Flow Green bar pad. They used the black one, but I think it'll be pretty sweet to throw that one on the bike. Time to get some handlebars on. So I decided to go with the Wyndham 998 bend on the twin wall here instead of the 997, which is I feel like everyone's standard bar. The difference between the 998 and the 997 is actually really similar. The 998 doesn't have as much rise at the end of the bars. The 997 bars are a little bit more sloped out, where these 998 bars are a little bit more flat across. Just a preference of mine. Everybody has their own handlebar preference. My alignment, I just try to match the angle of the forks. Feel like that's a pretty standard setup and seems to work for me. Start on the brake side first. I actually got a Honda CRF 450 front brake master cylinder here. Now, the banjo bolt is on the inside rather than the outside like other KX models. So here's the difference right here, CRF compared to the Kawasaki one. A little bit taller of a unit here. And then the KX one also uses this weird plunger system. So this is just updated and better overall. You should be able to still use the 99 KX brake hose. A lot of people update the front ends on these, but this should work just fine. What's also awesome is I scored some NOS Pro Circuit clutch and brake levers as well. Now the brake lever fortunately fits a ton of models, so it does fit the CRF 450. I think the master cylinder I got was 06, so that works out perfectly. Okay, so I got a fresh spring from the spec bolt kit. I greased up the bolt that goes through the brake lever. There it is. Take this build even a step further. A good buddy of mine, Spencer Luzak, I'm sure you guys know him. He's built some gnarly bikes and two-strokes in general. So he gave me this extra ZRT zero resistance throttle that he had. And you can actually see here that it's got bearings inside the throttle. And I've already fitted the bar mount to the end here. I need to cut 15 millimeters off the end of the bar here to account for the bar insert. When I push this onto the bar, look at this. I took the hacksaw, measured out 15 millimeters, cut the bar end, tightened down the end of the bar end here, installed the throttle. And as you can see here, this thing is absolutely butter smooth. Then in terms of the grips, I got some Renthal Kevlar grips, and with the ZRT throttle, it said not to use grip glue on this thing. So I'm just gonna spray a little bit of contact cleaner on the bar end and then slide the grip right on. We got the kill switch on the other side. And then same thing with the other side of the bars too. And then finally this NOS Flow Green Renthal bar pad. This is just crazy because the Velcro has literally never been taken apart before. Let's get some brake fluid in this bike here. I've got some Maxima .4 racing brake fluid here, full synthetic formula. I have to say, bleeding brakes is probably one of my least favorite things to do. Got the front brake pretty good. Let's do the same for the rear. Some Maxima brake fluid in there. How about we make some changes to the seat here? So I've got a lot going on the table here. Guts Racing, again, stepping up for the project. If you guys actually didn't know, the Pro Circuit Kawasaki team right now actually uses Guts seat foam. I've got this Air Specific 1999 KX250 Pro Circuit Splitfire seat. The story behind the seat is that it was actually on Ricky Carmichael's practice bike, which is really, really cool. It was not cheap, I'll tell you that much. What I'm gonna do is actually strip the OEM cover to put the 99 Pro Circuit Splitfire on. Reason being is, one, it sucks to ride on because one, the foam is super soft compared to the firm foam of the Guts, and then two, the seat cover is actually slicker than hot butter in a pan, so you work 10 times harder to try to stay planted on the bike. I know I could just keep the seat cover on there and save it for maybe a rainy day if I ever decide to sell the bike, but guess what? I'm not gonna do that. So if anybody is looking for a mint condition 1999 Kawasaki KX250 seat cover, leave a comment below or email me, DM me on Instagram, because this thing will be for sale. I was able to score a second seat and I got a tall, firm seat foam from Guts as well. I'm not actually gonna ride myself with this seat setup. It's gonna be for pictures, and I also got a gripper seat cover here with the ribs. I've only got 3 ribs in the top. Normally there's 5 ribs that come down, but I was able to score some Pro Circuit Kawasaki badges, some replicas. They are not from Guts Racing, so don't ask Guts. I got them from a cool dude in Australia. But basically, I'm gonna replicate that seat cover. So tall, firm seat foam, gripper seat. It just makes the bike feel more of a modern bike, in my opinion, and you're not sliding around at all compared to the OEM seat. I'm not gonna go through an entire seat cover installation. I've actually got 2 of those videos up on my channel. I've got an in-depth, detailed, step-by-step process of how to do it. And then I've also got more of a laid-back, kind of live version of it. There's no edits made to the video, so you guys can actually get an idea of how hard it is to put your seat cover on. So I'll leave those 2 videos linked in the description below as well. And there is the seat cover on. Looks pretty sweet. Let's go ahead and get this seat assembly finally on the motorcycle. There we go. That is gonna be a wrap on this video, guys. I know that was a lot to go through everything, the entire process to get this thing up and built. Now, you guys haven't seen the graphics yet. There are some bits and pieces that I still need to add to this bike to make sure it's 100% and ready to go and presentable for the final product. So in the next video, I'm gonna be changing at least 2 things to this motorcycle to suit me and the project a little bit better, but it won't be too long. You guys will just have to wait for that next video to finally see the final reveal with the graphics and the final project all buttoned up, as well as starting this thing for the very first time. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching these videos, and if you did find value and you enjoy the KX250 Splitfire build project, the links in my description below are affiliate links. If you click on those links and purchase parts through Rocky Mountain, say, or Amazon, any of the tools that you see that I use today, it helps support this channel at no extra cost to you guys, so I greatly appreciate it when you guys do that. It really helps out a lot. But we're almost across the finish line with this build, and I cannot wait to throw the graphics on and finally hear this thing run for the very first time. As always, ride hard, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace!